Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Late in the Day, your favorite beverage and questions. What are we going to talk about today? We were out at the club and people were demoing some of their wood turnings and some of the flat work that they do. They make signs and so forth, or make small cabinet items. And we were talking about how we each apply different finishes. Like I said in a previous video, when you talk about finish work, it's kind of a complex topic because it's done so many different ways. There's so many different methods that people use. It depends on if you want something that's just real simple, like sanding and applying wax, or just sanding a finish or something like that. But then you get into like lacquers and varnishes and shellacs and all this other stuff. So I said, we were talking and everybody agreed. I go, your most important thing is the preparation of the work before you apply any finish to it at all. It's like I said before, what's the difference between a mediocre finish and a great finish? Well, it's just spending more time. And even though it sounds like a pain, sometimes when you get into a rhythm of doing things, it becomes automatic for you. And I'll go over some of the tips and things that I use because my finishes always turn out fairly good. So the first thing is the preparation of the wood. Now let me show you a sanding protocol. Okay, the purpose of that is to show you I try not to ever jump more than 50 between grits. Like if I use 60, I go to 80, 80, I'll go to 100 or 120, 100, 120 to 150, 150, I'll go up to 220, 220, I'll go to 320, 320, I go to 400, 400 to 500 to 600 to 800 to 1,000, and so forth. So the key in all of this is whether it's 50 or 60 between grits or whatever method you want to choose. I have my sandpapers laid out that way, and I know what to use as I'm going along. Now, if you're talking about flat work or wood turning, what I'm going to talk about, it kind of applies to both. So on a wood turning like one of these, okay, when I start, I try to get out all the tool marks and all the bad parts of it that I can. And I use a carbide tool or I use a really sharp, like gouge. And I go along with a very light scraping action to try to get off as much as I can. When I think that I've done that, and it happens very quickly, I look at it and decide what grit do I want to start off using. Now, a lot of times it'll be between 120, 150, something like that. Now, I do get some wood sometimes, and it's like, it just tears out no matter what you do. And I might have to use 60 grit first. And in the forum, somebody said, well, kind of shows you're a rookie if you're using 60. And I said, well, 60 grit sandpaper is a tool like anything else. And if you need to use it, I use it. And you can think whatever you want. And then I go from there, from 60 to 80. And like I said, I proceed through, my protocol that way. And I start off the second tip or whatever. I don't use garnet and that junk sanding paper that you can buy. I use good quality sandpaper. I'll leave you links below on everything. Now, for when I'm doing some like serious wood carving or something, I use flap discs. I buy all my flap discs from Benchmark Abrasives. They're great. They last a long time. I've had great luck with them. I'm sure that there's a lot of other manufacturers out there. It's just that I know the quality, so I stick with it. Other than that, whether you use 3M or you're using some kind of cloth back pad because you have some of these right here that you're going to put in a variable speed drill, these sanding pads, these are the hook and loops. The same thing. I use good quality sandpaper. And if I'm going to sand by hand, and I'm going to pan over in a second and show you on the lathe what I mean. If I'm doing it by hand, I take a square piece of sandpaper and I'll fold it in half or thirds. And then I go ahead and I can start sanding with it. So sometimes I'm using the sanding disc pads. Sometimes I'm sanding by hand because I can't get in there with the pad or whatever the case may be. But start off with good quality sandpaper. Okay, so how often do I change sandpaper? Let's talk about the hook and loop for a minute. Generally, I get 3 to 4 sandings. It depends on how long I'm using it for. But when I feel that the sandpaper is starting to get worn out, I throw it out. Worn out sandpaper isn't going to do anything but cost you more, time. And it really gives you no benefit. So when I feel it's worn, I get rid of it. So 3 to 4 times on some of these vessels, if I make 3 or 4 of them, I get rid of it because the cutting edge on that sandpaper is shot, and it's just not worth hassling with. Now, if it's a large project, say something twice the size of one of these, I might only use it one time and throw it out. So we're at the point where I've used sharp tools. I sharpen my tools before I do the finish cuts. Sharpen them, finish cut, okay? Or if I'm using the carbide, whatever. And I just do it very lightly, and I'm just going over the surface. Now, what I might do sometimes is spray some mineral spirits on the wood, on the lathe. And then I go over it very, very lightly to where you're getting like this angel hair kind of dust coming off of it. And I've cleaned it up the best I can before I start my sanding protocol. So sharp tools are important. Okay, what you want to be careful of if you're sanding, it's hard to do with these discs or by hand. If I have it folded over and I'm sanding and you start to feel heat with your fingers, you're pushing too hard or your lathe speed's going too fast. My lathe speed will be about 250 or 300. And if you're doing this and you're pushing too hard, you'll feel the heat start to come up onto your fingertips. That's not doing you any good, especially the wood. You're going to get checks and crack marks from getting that wood hot like that. So I don't want the wood to get hot. Let the sandpaper do its work. Put it on there with just a little bit of pressure, and don't be in a rush and start working your way, like I said, through your grits. But on the first grit, say it's the 80 grit, I'm sanding it. I don't want to push down, like I said, I don't want to create that heat. And you go through your grits like that in the same manner, but don't push down hard. When I was out at the club, I would see people, I think maybe because they're in a rush, they're pushing hard, and they're going to end up having problems. Now, maybe not so much on flat work, but if you have something that's thin that you've hollowed out, or a bowl you're working on, and you start to apply pressure like that, it generates that heat. Like I said, you're going to get checking and cracking. And when I'm sanding, it doesn't matter if it's flat work or it's on the lathe. I'm always moving. I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I keep it moving with that light pressure, and I just keep going. Let the sandpaper do its job and do the work, and you'll see it's actually a very effective way. And it'll become second nature to you after you practice doing this. Now, I'm going to pan over and I'll sit in front of the lathe and I'll show you on the wood project now. Okay, now in this case, I just completed this today. This is a piece of oak. And when I was done, like I said, sharp tools, I get out as much of it as I can. I see some little skitty kind of marks here, and I rotate this. Now, I go to the dollar store and I pick up a pair of reading glasses. These are about 2.5, and I have them with me in the shop. I put these on. I look at this very carefully. Tool marks, anything that I think needs to be taken care of and sanded out. Now, the other thing that I do, just as a reminder to myself, I can make a pencil mark, and then I spin this around. I'm going to put that on there like that, and I look it over real good. And overall, that looks pretty good. So I would start probably at 100 or 120, but let's assume you started at 80. So my first sanding, I would sand with this thing running at 80. And when I thought I was done, I take a brush, or you can use an air gun, and I clean this off real well. Then I inspect it again. And if I feel that I've gotten all of those tool marks off of there, I sand with the grain by hand. This goes fast. I do this with each grit. Then I go ahead, I clean it off one more time, and I'll go to the next grit. So let's say we started at 100 and the next grit would be 150. I would sand this with the lathe turning at about 250 or so and say, okay, now I think I got everything out. Again, clean it off, take a close look, and then sand with the grain if I feel comfortable that I've gotten out all the marks from the previous grit. Then I go ahead and I go forward to the next grit. Now, along the line, other things that I can do. When I start getting around 150, you can do this sooner, it doesn't matter. I'll spray this with alcohol and take a look. Now it does two things. It'll give you an idea with a clear finish what the wood project will look like when you're done, but it also cleans this off real well. And then I go ahead and, like I said, I'll go on to the next grit. I'll sand it with the lathe spinning, look at it, sand with the grain, wipe it off. I might, maybe not, put some alcohol on there, take a look at it, and then I keep progressing forward. And there's always a safety note along the way. Make sure that you're wearing a dust mask or you're in a well-ventilated area, and you're not breathing all these dust particles, because there will be a lot of them that are coming off of here. Now the other thing, you might spend more time sanding if you're in these lower grits, trying to finish forming it and getting out bad gouging tool marks and whatever, and that's okay. As you start to go through the grits, you'll go through them faster than you will on the lower grits. I mean, if you stick to this kind of a protocol. Now, my last step in this, it depends on the kind of finish I want to put on it, okay? We'll talk about those in a little bit or on another video, but I turn around and go, okay, I believe I'm done with my sanding. Let's say I'm at 320 or 400. I believe by the time you hit 150 or 220, if you're going to put a film finish on these projects, you don't need to keep sanding into higher grits, because it won't really matter, I don't think. Other people will disagree, but I'm just saying. So let's say around 150, 220, 320, somewhere in there, I decide, okay, I'm done with my sanding protocol and my sanding routine. And I clean this off real good. I've hand sanded it with the grain, like I said, cleaned it off. And now, whether you're using mineral spirits or alcohol, I'll clean this off real well with one of those, because it really helps when you go to apply the finish to have a really clean surface, and it gets out all the impurities and whatever is on there. And I've always had good luck doing that as my last step. So I keep a spray bottle of it around. And in this case, this is mineral spirits just in a container. I'll spray the inside of this because this was green wood. I don't want it to dry fast and crack. So with the lathe spinning slowly, and then I'll spray the outside of it like this. And then I let it spin for a few seconds. And then when I stop it, it's going to give me an idea of what this is going to look like if I put a clear finish on there. And this looks pretty cool, really. It's got some nice lines and stuff in it. But I'm not done with the sanding. I'm just showing you this as a demonstration. I'll let this dry. Then I myself off camera will go through the sanding protocol that I described to you. And like I said, I clean, sand, hand sand. I mean, I do all of this because wood preparation for these finishes is very important. If you're doing something that doesn't matter, you can sand. Let's say you sand up to 220, 320, or 400, you clean it off real well. You just put some paste wax on there and buff it off and call it done. You can do that. That's kind of a dummy-proof kind of a finish. And it looks good on a lot of projects. Now for me, I do a lot of experimenting and playing around. I got lacquer, varnishes, I've got shellac, and I've got oil, like Danish oil, tung oil, stuff like that. So I do something different all the time with finishes, just to see what I like, what I don't like, or what I think I can improve on. Now, the one thing, and I did this in the last video, is with shellac. I like to use shellac as a sanding sealer. So let's say that this is like totally done in terms of sanding or whatever, okay, then I'll apply 1, 2, maybe 3 coats of a shellac sanding sealer. And we're going to talk about that in the next video and how I mix it and why I mix it. So, kind of a down dirty way of explaining, I guess, sanding protocol, but that's how I do it. So don't try to go, more than like 50, 60, somewhere in there, in terms of going between grits. If you need 60 grit, like I said, it's a tool, ignore the bad comments, use it. Then go from 60, you clean it off real well, look at it with your reading glasses, get out all the tool marks, all that stuff. Then go to 80 grit with it spinning. And then, like I said, between each grit, also after you've sanded, like let's say with 60 or 80, and I'm happy with it, I go with the grain, clean it off, go to 80 grit, look at it, happy with it, clean it off real well, hand sand with the grain, clean it off again, and I keep going up. And then from time to time, I'll spray this down with alcohol, and I'll clean it off real good and look at it. And I want to make sure I get this surface as close to perfect as I can. Okay folks, I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe, keep following me. I got my feral cats, my buddies. I'll show you a couple of quick pictures. Yeah, they're feral, they hang around like I tell you in my videos. They keep me company. They don't let me touch them, but they'll hang around in the garage at night and during the day, and I feed them. So whenever you can, click on the links, below in the description. And even if you don't buy something, I suppose they give me a few cents or whatever, and I use it to feed them, and I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next video. If you have any suggestions on better ways to do something I've described, sometimes I can't think of every single little detail, but if you've got a better sanding protocol, go ahead and drop it in the comment below. I get into a routine that like I have it in my head and I know what to do, and it's automatic, and I can go through it fairly quickly. So even though this seems like, wow, what a time-consuming pain in the butt, it's really not once you start and you keep doing it. And like I said, you'll go, the lower grits, you might spend a little more time sanding, but as you start getting and going through the grits, you'll go through them quicker. All right, I'll see you in the next video. You folks have a great day. Bye-bye.